Tonight, a group of Palestinian Canadians get face-to-face with Prime Minister Trudeau in Toronto.
We are demanding that our Prime Minister call for an immediate ceasefire.
Trudeau made no public commitments about the Israel-Hamas war following the meeting, but the families say they're optimistic. We'll show you why.
We're pretty shaken. It's not every day your house gets vandalized.
Plus, vulgar vandals in Vaughan, what police know about the graffiti incident and the goat head thrown into someone's living room.
By doing these altars, we feel that we still are connected to them, even though they're not physically with us.
And from Katrinas to candles, why Day of the Dead is a favorite spiritual celebration for many Mexicans in Toronto. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. We're starting with fresh calls for Canada to support a ceasefire in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. Tonight, a group of Palestinian Canadian families took that message directly to the Prime Minister while he was here in Toronto speaking at an event. Justin Trudeau didn't make any public promises, but the families say they left feeling optimistic. Patrick Swadden explains why in our top story tonight.
This is work that we've already been doing.
As Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressed the Ontario Economic Summit in Toronto today, a number of Palestinian Canadians waited anxiously backstage.
The next few days will tell how this meeting went.
A dozen families with loved ones in Gaza meeting with Trudeau this evening, immediately following his address. Reem Sultan was one of two in attendance who agreed to speak to CBC Toronto on camera. The others too fearful, she says, after weeks of harassment and persecution.
We are demanding that our Prime Minister call for an immediate ceasefire. Anything less than a ceasefire is simply unconscionable and indefensible.
This after weeks of demonstrations throughout Canada calling for the same. Trudeau has stopped short of calling for a ceasefire, saying Israel has the right to defend itself. But this morning,
The price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. We are deeply concerned by the catastrophic impact on the population in Gaza, particularly on children.
Trudeau said this morning Canada is calling for more aid and has supported humanitarian pauses to allow water, food, and fuel to flow into Gaza. But after tonight's meeting,
there has been a change, and we're hoping for more.
But what change that is, Sultan didn't say, but says the group is hopeful the Prime Minister will make a statement in the coming days. Caught leaving the event tonight, Trudeau didn't say much to reporters. Earlier today, the entire federal NDP caucus wrote to the Prime Minister calling for a ceasefire, also urgently calling to ensure Canadians can safely leave Gaza. The Rafah border crossing opened today, allowing some 500 foreign nationals to cross into Egypt, the first since the Israel-Hamas war began more than 3 weeks ago. But with over 400 Canadians still left in Gaza,
not a single Canadian left Gaza. And further, our families were told that they can't be guaranteed safety.
Leaving the families who met with Trudeau desperately waiting and hoping the Prime Minister will change his tune.
I don't know what's going to come out. I know that he was listening.
Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
Gathered not just to show our love for those families amid this unimaginable crisis they're experiencing, but also to call on the world to prioritize this issue. You know, the Middle East is complicated, but this shouldn't be.
A rally in support of Israeli hostages being held by Hamas taking place in the city tonight. A local Jewish group meeting in a Cedarvale synagogue. The congregation is calling for the safe release of those captured. Earlier today, our Dale Manukduk spoke with Israeli families who have loved ones being held by Hamas and others who say their loved ones have already been killed.
This is Tiferet Lapidot, and Tiferet was brutally murdered by Hamas.
She was our baby.
Siblings Galit Gorin and Harel Lapidot are in Toronto visiting from Israel. They say their niece was one of the many taken by Hamas from a music festival on October 7th.
Do you know the song, You Are My Sunshine? So that's Tiferet. Wherever she went, she had a beautiful glow.
11 days after they last heard from her, police identified her body, which her aunt says was missing an arm and leg. And gone with her for now, generations of song.
You probably know the song Good Night, Sleep Tight, and all your dreams come true. And we are used to this song that my grandma sang to us, my mother sang to us, and we sang to our children. But nowadays, we stopped singing.
Gorin and Lapidot were joined by others impacted by the attack.
I'm Aaron Brodach. My brother's family was kidnapped from Kfar Aza and taken into Gaza. They're currently being held hostage by Hamas. His last text message that he got from his wife was they're coming in, and the phone went dead. And so we were sure they'd all been killed in the worst way possible.
Brodach says a neighbor saw his sister-in-law and 3 young children being taken away alive. Days later, Israeli soldiers went to clear the family's house and saw no signs of violence.
We want the world to do everything it can to bring them home. We're hoping that the Canadian government can lead the way in, their immediate release.
Nothing in my life prepared me for this.
Uri Ravitz is in Israel, where so many too are calling for the hostages' release. His 84-year-old mother Alma was taken from her home about 1 kilometer away from Gaza.
We got a picture after she disappeared. The day after, in Telegram, we can see her sitting on a motorcycle with 2 terrorists, Hamas terrorists.
Global Affairs says Canada is calling on Hamas to release the hostages and is working closely with the government of Israel on the issue. It also says at least 2 Canadians remain missing. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's turn now to an outrageous crime in Vaughan. York Regional Police allege vandals spray-painted graffiti on cars and in one case threw a skinned goat head through the living room window of a home. Greg Ross has that story.
In the early morning hours of October 25th, security cameras capture a white car pulling up to a home on Lockheed Avenue in Vaughan. 2 masked men get out. One of them immediately starts spray painting vulgar words on a car parked in the driveway as well as the garage door. Not long after that, he smashes the windows of the car.
They are wearing N95 masks. They are wearing pretty nondescript clothing, but one is very visibly visible on camera, causing damage to that vehicle, while the other one appears to be standing as lookout on the street.
Police say just 2 days later, the same men attacked the same house, only this time the damage was far worse.
We get a call at 3:45 in the morning by the same homeowner. He now is calling to say that a goat head has been thrown through his living room window. When we arrive on scene, that's when we also see that 3 more vehicles that are parked in the same driveway are now spray painted.
The vandals also spray painted the walkway leading up to the house, and another goat's head was found there. Just a couple of hours later, police believed the same men would strike again. This time at a house near Weston Road and Villa Royale Avenue.
We get a call the next morning from that homeowner who wakes up and finds also a goat head and more spray painting on their front doorstep.
Police say they have reason to believe that this house was mistakenly targeted.
And we believe that it's a dispute that's occurring between the suspects and the residents of the initial home.
Police aren't providing any details about that dispute, and they're not saying if they've identified any suspects. We attempted to talk to the people who live in the home, but they declined. The entire ordeal has some other people who live in this neighborhood feeling a little on edge.
Like, I saw the graffiti, and I was shocked.
The graffiti on the house has since been painted over and the window repaired.
Yeah, it makes me nervous. And I know there's a couple of cars.
This man says he knows the homeowners and has spoken to them.
Yeah, they're pretty shaken. It's like, it's not every day you get your house gets vandalized. I wouldn't like it to happen to my house, that's for sure.
At this point, police have not been able to positively identify the make and model of the vehicle used by the vandals. They're asking anyone in the area with a security camera or a dash camera to check their footage and see if they were able to capture any video that could be of help. Greg Ross, CBC News, Vaughan.
Now back to Toronto's downtown, where police say a driver was shot by another driver on the Gardiner Expressway overnight, stemming from an apparent road rage incident.
It's reported that the victim was traveling eastbound on the Gardiner around the area of Spadina when there was some kind of road rage incident that occurred, and occupants of another vehicle discharged a firearm at the victim's vehicle.
Investigators say the victim walked into a hospital just after midnight last night, suffering from a gunshot wound. Police say the victim's injuries are not considered life-threatening, and they're still searching for a suspect. 2 degrees and cloudy, heading to a low of 0 as we look live at the city tonight. Colette is here with a first look at the forecast. So right now, 2 degrees, Colette, but this time last Wednesday night, it was 16 degrees. Probably just one of the reasons why it felt so chilly today.
Yeah, I guess, Chris, it certainly made for a cooler Halloween. And then this morning and today, temperatures well below seasonal, in general about 5 degrees below. But I'm here to tell you that things will be improving, because we go from seeing this kind of cool trough that's taken over not only the Great Lakes, but into the northeastern U.S. And as we head towards the weekend, our flow gets more zonal, at least on this half of the continent. And that's going to kind of level things out and get our temperatures back closer to seasonal, because here's a look at those daytime highs, just how chilly. Ottawa, barely able to get that temperature above freezing. And then you had to add insult to injury by having some of that lake effect snow along the 400 and Goderich towards London. Well, as the winds change direction and some milder air starts to push in, the lake effect we tend to see comes in the form, different areas, but in the form of showers. So a chance of that through the Niagara region for tomorrow in the afternoon hours, a little bit in the lee of Georgian Bay, but it is milder. You just have to know it's going to be breezy as well, driving in that milder air. So -1 with the winds feeling like -6, 9 for the high for tomorrow. And we'll get into that weekend forecast when I come back, Chris.
Not too early to be talking about the weekend. All right. Thank you, Colette. Taking you to Chinatown now, where the city launched a campaign today against East Asian hate.
You know, we're enjoying Chinese food, we're enjoying bubble tea, we're enjoying K-pop and K-dramas. But are we going past that? Are we able to identify when racism is happening and calling it out?
The Toronto for All initiative is meant to promote dialogue to end racism and discrimination. It's led by local organizations, educators, and leaders from the community. Meanwhile, the Ford government says it's taking action to combat a rise in hate against Jewish people, especially pronounced right now, given the war in the Middle East. Education Minister Stephen Lecce says learning about the Holocaust will now be part of the compulsory grade 10 history course beginning next school year. That's in addition to it already being part of grade 6 social sciences. And tomorrow will be a busy day for the Ford government, expected to table the fall economic statement. That's kind of like a mini budget of sorts. But already tonight, we know an important component of tomorrow's update. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop walks us through the relief that's coming for home builders.
Ontario's finance minister was at a rental housing construction site to announce an incentive for builders.
We are following through on our promise to remove the full provincial portion of the HST. Now that's 8% on qualifying new purpose-built rental housing.
It applies to construction projects that started September 14th up to the end of 2030. Building must be finished by the end of 2035. The federal government recently announced it was cutting the GST on those types of builds, something the Ontario government pushed for. Adding the provincial cut, now it'll mean a total of 13% in savings. Opposition parties say the tax cut is just part of the solution.
If we just build housing but we're not actually addressing the affordability issue, we're not getting it right. We need to have affordable rental housing, and we need real rent control now.
Right now, rent control only applies to buildings completed before November 15th, 2018, the date the Ford government changed the rule. As for what else opposition parties are looking for, the Liberals want higher social assistance rates and more for low-income parents.
I'd like to see the government actually try to tackle, grocery prices. They keep passing the buck to the federal government.
Housing, housing, housing.
The number one thing this government can do that's in provincial jurisdiction to address the affordability crisis people are facing is to take on the housing crisis head on.
The government promises more on housing is coming, though it's not clear if there will be anything tomorrow. It's set to release a housing supply action plan early next year. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Returning now with news about a special partnership announced today between the Raptors and Canada's national women's basketball team. At a Toronto gym, the top Canadian talent also hitting the hardwood with some young players today hoping to be inspired. Tyler Cheese was courtside.
Opportunities like this are truly special for us to give back to the game, to give back to the community, and hopefully to be a little bit of an inspiration for these girls.
Today, these girls have the opportunity to run drills and learn what the sport is all about from members of Canada's senior women's national basketball team.
It's the friends that you make in the game. It's the fun that you have. So hopefully we can share that a little bit with this group here today.
The event was hosted by Canada Basketball, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and the Toronto Raptors, and was held to celebrate the Raptors logo being added to the women's team uniforms.
It's just a really good partnership, and I'm glad and proud that myself and my teammates will be able to wear this proudly on our shorts as we continue to get ready for the Olympics.
Canada Basketball says the partnership is a way to connect all levels of basketball to support one another.
This is actually a recognition of a partnership that's been in place for almost 3 decades. But then also it's something we can do to connect women's basketball, girls basketball, and what it means to be a basketball fan in this country. And so many fans of the Raptors are also fans of our program, so that connectivity together is really important.
Many are hoping this is a step towards our city one day getting its own professional WNBA team. That's especially poignant given the positive response to Canada's first ever WNBA game hosted here in Toronto last May.
If anyone was anywhere close to that WNBA game here earlier this season, they would know. I had just had my son maybe 3 weeks before, and I came, and to be in that arena gave me chills. So I know that the support is there.
And others say it's only a matter of time.
I think that there will be a team here at some point, hopefully, while I'm still playing, so I can come back and play. But, I think that's the best part about it is that there is a pathway, and this pathway is being built. It's being built in our league now, and I think it will end up here. It's just a matter of when.
The Raptors logo will be displayed on the players' uniforms in games and tournaments leading up to the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Very cool. Okay, taking you now to the city's downtown airport, announcing today it is running a donation drive for the Daily Bread Food Bank this holiday season.
But this initiative is more than just collecting donations. It's a collective effort to stand up to the challenges that many Torontonians are facing. We firmly believe that a thriving community is one where each member supports the other and where we are honoured to be able to contribute to this cause.
Billy Bishop Airport's donation drive will run through November, and Daily Bread's CEO says the food bank gets 275,000 visits per month. That's up from 60,000 per month pre-pandemic. All right, let's get back to you, Colette, and this warm air that's blowing into our region in the coming days.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. With some of the breezy conditions, we're going to see some of the leaves actually dropping off the trees. I know there's already enough to rake, but we are going to be finding those winds picking up again for the next couple of days. Taking you to the bus stop, Toronto, tomorrow morning, about 1 degree, that temperature. So it is a cool start, mostly sunny, and then heading home around 9 degrees. So we do pretty well into the afternoon, but watch for those winds gusting 40, 50 kilometers an hour. And Windsor off to school, 3 degrees, kind of the opposite in that there'll be more cloud in the morning, and then we should at least have some sunny breaks or kind of a mix of sun and cloud into the afternoon. That 8 won't be the high for the day, but right around after school time, around 3 o'clock or so. As those southwesterly winds kick in, it means there'll be some lake effect, but mostly in the form of showers in different places that we've seen the lake effect snow. Chance for getting a few towards the Niagara region, St. Catharines, maybe the odd sprinkle through Hamilton and Kingston area as well, where also a little dusting of snow came through last night. So moving all of this through, the situation is going to be not only is the winds strong tomorrow, but into Friday too. I do anticipate we're going to have some pretty breezy conditions. So just be prepared for that. Tomorrow, the early part of the day, especially in southwestern Ontario, and you can see along the shoreline and some of those areas where we'll get into the strongest gusts, but at least it's that direction that'll pick these temperatures up. So overnight lows like this, like we're seeing overnight tonight, and I do expect us to be just below freezing for Toronto. We won't see that after tonight. So by the time we get to Thursday, Friday night, look at those overnight lows, much milder, and the daytime highs, of course, very important, that those are going to be back into the double digits, Chris.
Very important for a lot of people. All right. Finally, tonight, Halloween has passed, but today marks the beginning of Dia de los Muertos, known in English as Day of the Dead, and the holiday is rooted in Mexican heritage, a culture that runs deep in our city. And our Toronto host, Shannon Martin, asked members of Puro Mexico, a Mexican dance company, what the tradition means to them.
Is very important to us. It's not Mexican Halloween like many think. It's a very cultural, spiritual celebration that happens, and you'll see altars, which are setups done to remember our loved ones. You'll see flowers, you'll see Catrinas, which is people dressed in traditional costumes with makeup, the traditional skull makeup that you know.
It is a day that when we remember our loved ones that have gone, it is a way to keep them with us at least. It's a day dedicated for them. I do my altar, my little altar for my grandparents because they have all departed. So I put their pictures in the altar, I put food that they used to like and candles, and I participate with the group in these different cultural events. By doing these altars, we expect them to come back, and we feel that we still are connected to them even though they're not physically with us.
Beautiful sentiment there. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'll be back with you tomorrow night at 11, and we'll see you then.